Afternoon, everyone, or good evening to
Good
some of us.
afternoon.
Yes, my name is Malia Contreras. Thank you so much for our panelists and our attendees for joining us today for our Native Leaders in Food panel discussion. Everyone got the agenda of the topics that we will be going over today. So how to go is I'm going to share my screen. I have some slides to share. I'll have the panelists introduce themselves and their business. Um, I believe I don't know the order off the top of my head, but as you see the screen share and you see your slide, please feel free to share. So I used that photo and introductory of yourselves and your business that you sent over. So we'll spend about 5 minutes doing introductions, and then we will dive into our topics. And then as our attendees have questions, they can type it in the chat, and then we'll make sure to pause to have time to answer those. And then if not, we do have time allocated at the very end to answer some questions as well. So let me share my screen. Alrighty, can everyone see my screen okay?
Looks good.
Yeah. So today's discussion and insight, we're going to be touching on stories of Native-owned food businesses with our amazing panelists here, and also discussing navigating capital, credit, and financial resilience, and strengthening food sovereignty and community impact. And so we can start off first with Makana Provisions. You can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Aloha, I'm Makana. My name is Ignacio Fleishour of Makana Provisions. We're going to be changing a lot of our naming to Makana Wild as we focus more on wild foods. And so we manufacture, we hunt deer on Maui and Molokai and turn them into value-added food products. And we also sell the meat. So aloha and thanks for having me. And I'm Apache Cherokee, and yeah, I'm excited to be a panelist on here and appreciate your time.
Aloha. I'm Kahealani, Kaaihili. I'm the owner of Mokuwai Piko Poi, located on Hawaiʻi Island in Honoka'a. I am a fourth of sixth generation kalo farmer and poi processor.
Yeah, hey, my name is Mike. We are a native owned. We do sauces, and we also do a indigenous fried bread, Navajo fried bread mix. We're based here in Phoenix, Arizona. We've been doing it about 5 years now. Yeah, we do sauces, we do the fried bread, and we also do Navajo tea. We mostly do e-commerce. We do wholesale as well. Yeah, just looking forward to the future.
Tanchikia. Hello, how are you? My name's Pat Mabin, and I'm the owner, CEO of Pemmican Patty Food Company. I am a citizen of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians in North Dakota. So we're based on the Canadian border. Our products are a bison beef and berry bar that is based on a pemmican recipe. So many people are unfamiliar with what pemmican is. And so that's a fun part of our being able to tell our story is about how pemmican was one of the survival foods and then became a trade food of the northern tribes. We try to keep our products as close to how they were generations ago. And so I'm excited to hear about everybody else's business experiences. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us. And then we also do want to thank the Native American Agriculture Fund as well for funding this work as a part of the Hui Hānai Ai program with Mālama Kaua. And I'll stop sharing my screen and we can dive into our panelists' topics. So we're going to start off with some questions about the journey around your native-owned food businesses. And as I asked, if you feel inclined to share, please do so. There's no particular order to answer in. If you need some more time to think, definitely do that. And then we can also be open to questions in the chat during this as well. So to our panelists, what has shaped your path as a native food entrepreneur, and how does your identity and heritage show up in your business? So with that question, consider your early inspirations, personal or cultural values, and the spark that led you into the food industry. And maybe you can share about stories or experiences that have guided your journey there.
I'll go. You know, in my family as well as in our culture, diabetes, heart conditions, and obesity have been prevalent. And so our goal right away was to try to help reverse the impact of generations of poor nutrition. And when we started our company, it was just kind of a thought that we wanted to be able to help to preserve, protect, and promote our heritage. And my brother and I were driving back from a visit to family on the reservation. And we got to talking about entrepreneurship and bison and how we continued to just be able to move forward and adapt. And I asked Mike I said, well, what do you know about pemmican? Pemmican, tell me about that. So I talked with him a little about it, and he's over. I saw the wheels turning over there. He says, Pemmican, Pemmican, Pemmican Patty. I've got a name for a company. Do you think you could find a recipe? And truly, that's how our business began, was just a thought of wanting to be able to do something good and give back to our people. I'm
That's
done.
amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, so I'll go. Yeah, with our stuff, I mean, we started 5 years ago, like I said, and we did the sauces first, but then once we started, the one thing, Navajos, what we're known, Navajo fry bread. So that was one of the things. And then if you looked on the market, I mean, you could probably count with one hand how many fry bread mixes are out there that I know of, or at the time I did. And none of them were, Navajo made. They were, wooden knife and red corn and all this other stuff. And it was just like, man, I'm surprised like no one's tried starting this. So we kind of took it and it just kind of blew up right then and there. And so then we just focused more on just that. So just, embracing our culture and like our fry bread, and just taking that, we still do sauces and stuff, but we just, yeah, embraced our culture, what it is. And that was, something I'm trying to market and show is like, our brand of our style, it's my recipe just of fry bread, to be brought out to the world. And, it's been amazing since. It's such a great response. So
Thank you.
I'll go. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be here to share what this journey has been for us. And Mokuwai Piko Poi was established this year will make 28 years that we are a certified poi processing company, and we also farm kalo, which is taro in Waipio Valley. I'm a lineal descendant of Waipio, and therefore my inspiration was something that I was born into. It wasn't a choice. It was something that we have done for generations. We are 6 generations. I am the 4th, and it's been an honor to be able to carry on this legacy. We actually started our business back in 1997 as certified processor when the Hamakua sugar plantation was shutting down. And my dad decided that he didn't want to work for anyone. And he said, we're going to make a poi shop. And so we were the first certified poi kitchen here on the Hamakua coast. And it's been a journey of highs and lows and lots of learning. And we've done majority of our processing through aggregation of our local farmers and even inter-island. So it's been really nice to be able to hold hands, work together, and at the end of each day, we come out with what we strive for, which is to make poi. Poi and kalo is something that I feel defines who we are as Kanaka. We Hawaiians, we come from the line of kalo, and therefore it is a great honor that I can sit here and share the success. And it hasn't always been success. Sometimes it took failure to grow, but that's part about doing what you love doing, is that you get right back out there and do it again. So we are able to process twice a week. And it is an honor when our poi is a baby's first food. And it is a greater honor when it is our kupuna's last food. So we get to be the first food for some, and we get to be their final meal for some. And that is what we strive for. And this way of life, this so-called business, if we had to look at it in a business aspect, has allowed me to be a full-time mom and raise my children knowing no different either. So this is not something that we get trained for. This is something that we're just born into, and we continue to carry on the legacy. So I'm right now able to run our business, feed our people, and work side by side with my dad, who is 75 years old. And he has been in this journey from a little boy of 12 years old running the mule train to now where we have vehicular access. So that's just a little bit of what we do, but the honor is being able to feed our people.
Thank you. So I never wanted to be in the food business. I studied international business, I code and build apps and worked in the oil industry. Grew up mostly in the continental US. My grandparents, one was Apache German, and he came here in the Navy, and my grandmother on my father's side came from Spain, and they became cowboys and farmers on Kauai, both Waimeas, Kauai and Big Island. And so growing up, we learned hunting and fishing and making net, making weapon, all the old ways, grain tanning and all that. So I never thought about food as a business because it was so spiritual and connecting. And so when I came to Hawaii, it was the same way. The first day in Hawaii, we went up Ka'ala in Waianae. That's where we lived. And So the connection to Hawaii was very similar about the native way of looking at spirit and food and that connection between the two. So I never wanted to be in the food business, but I love teaching, and that's what I was doing. And we always, whenever we hunted, we were taught that a quarter goes to our elders that can't hunt anymore, and then another quarter goes to whoever came along to help bring down the harvest. So that's the way I've lived my life, and even though I was in the business world, I took time every summer to pass on those teachings. And about 10 years ago, I was doing a program with the nonprofit Mokuwai Valley, and I was teaching using the outdoors as a metaphor for thriving in the world. And someone say, "Hey, you heard about this? They're trying to do USDA hunting of deer, and I want to connect you with this guy on Molokai and see if you can help him." And so I connected with him, and turns out we're like second, third cousins or uncle, and like everybody in Hawaii, and or even on the rest, right? So that's how we got started. We fought. We tried to get it approved to do USDA wild harvesting. We helped create the rules. We lobbied all the way in Denver, and we kept getting no's, and we went to Washington to push it, and we finally got. So we were the first company doing wild harvested deer under USDA inspection. So now, looking at that, we're like, okay, so we're going to turn this issue, the deer here, because of lack of predators, a lot of abundance and really good abundance were growing too fast. So we were looking at how do we solve that and then put money back. So we also started paying farmers to hunt to recover their costs, and then we made like 42 products, and I brought them to market, chilies, patties, burgers, all this kind of stuff, and learned a lot from those mistakes. Even though people wanted the product, and we sold a lot of it online, and we made our own restaurant to get people to eat it. I've learned to trim back so I have more time for family and hunting instead of working in the kitchen and administration. So now we're more focused on, similar to the Pemmican, making jerkies and sustainable foods that last longer. So we made a lot of strides. More recently, we've connected to the Center for Native Economic Development. So we're looking at bringing other plants to reservations so we can teach some of these things and use technology and the past to make value-added foods and bring them to market. We have big contracts with military, national parks, and been super blessed. And for some reason, I wanted to stay away from doing that, but I've learned that in being successful, we can give more to the community. So we stay involved. We're recovering a forest in Manoa, taking out invasive plants and natives, and then we're recovering a fish pond in Pearl Harbor. So the benefit of being successful is to be able to give back, and we're blessed with this place in Hawaii. There's so much abundance, so that's probably the most important thing in that approach to our business that has made us be successful.
Thank you all for sharing. I think what I had collected across everyone's answers that, like the honor and benefit is really like our own to be able to share and give back to the community. So thank you so much. And everyone's doing such important work. There is a couple follow-up questions that we have on this topic. And the question is, how do you balance storytelling and cultural education in your branding or customer experience or products?
I don't look at my business as a business. So I look at it as something that is an honor to do because I'm carrying on the legacy of our kupuna, and they were the ones that left the path for us to follow. The plan was already in place. So all we have to do is just continue to follow the path. And I feel like that makes it easier for me than, and just being genuine about it. The way that we were raised to be and love what we do is the same way that I do with my business. And everyone that I feel, for the most part, has the access to our business, our so-called business, is can feel that. So that's how we do it. We don't specify on trying to be one certain way. We just do it the way we know that we were raised to do.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to add into that? That does kind of tie into the next question. You talk about kupuna, which is like our elders or grandparents. And with that, what role did mentorship or intergenerational knowledge from our kupuna play in your journey into the food world?
For generations, we've known no different. And we also had our kuleana wasn't just for Kanaka, because at one time in YPO, it was a mix of generations. And so, and a mix of backgrounds. My grandpa came here from Canton, China, and he married my grandma, who was pure Hawaiian. He was once, he farmed 2/3 of YPO. And so the way I look at it is everyone just having the love to care for, to feed our people. For us, that's what keeps us going, is knowing that once, many generations ago, years ago, he strived to feed our people. We had 2 poi factories in YPO, family owned. And so I feel like by doing it in the more modern times that we're doing it in, but we're still carrying on the kuleana of how our kupuna would have wanted it done back then. I mean, and I can't say that I spoke to him about it. So I have to just go on the what I was born into, and believe that that is what keeps us going in the right direction.
And I feel that my story is almost the opposite, that my grandparents raised my mom partially on the reservation, and then he took his family away from all of our family and our people and moved into town in order to be able to provide for his large family. So we had time with, we had time with our relatives. But when I began this journey, I I didn't know. My mom used to say, be proud of your heritage. And I really didn't know what that meant until we started to until we started in this business. I had to learn who in my family had made pemmican. I had to learn about where the region was that we traveled. The story of a massacre in the family was always big, but it was never that our family was from Canada, Minnesota, Montana. I didn't know those things until we got into the business. So it's just been such a learning experience and a reconnection for not only myself, but also for my family. And didn't really choose food. It just, we chose the name and then we moved forward. Which I guess that's a part of the interesting part of our story, is that in our desire to be able to give back we have been given so much. We've reconnected with our family. We've learned from generations back about how we survived and moved forward. And now within our business, we continue to connect with people that we had, we had no idea we were related to. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing. Before I move on to our next topic, did anyone want to add on to anything that was shared or have any questions for the panelists? You got anything? Alrighty, thank you for sharing. Now we're going to dive into navigating capital, credit, and financial resilience. And our first question to the panelists is, how has access to credit or capital shaped your business journey positively or negatively? Can think about sharing stories of how you've navigated credit, financing, or funding opportunities, and what were the barriers or breakthroughs, and how did they impact your business growth?
So actually, I'll take, we're actually in the start of this because, so when I started this business, it was during the pandemic, did, 15 years being in the food industry. I just wanted to do things on my own. So I saved up enough, and just with everything going on, I did everything with whatever funds I had. And up until now, that's basically what I've been doing. And we actually have a program for Native owned businesses here that worked with Navajo or any indigenous businesses. So we're just now starting to, find out, what loans we can get, what, grants and stuff like that. What we're doing now is it's a loan, a low interest loan, but we're in the very beginnings of this. So so for the 5 years, I haven't had any grants. I couldn't find any grants, any loans. I was too scared to do loans just because I didn't know if this business was going to work. But I mean, it's showing that it is. So that's why we're like, okay, so what else can we do now? So I'm at the very beginning of learning about all this and starting. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear everyone else and what if they've done it or what they did, but I'm just now doing it. So
Well, and that's what we did
So
as well. We decided to grow more slowly. And so we've been self-funded for the last 5 years. We were very fortunate to have a sizable sale early on that helped give us, a bit of a boost. But our business is it's pretty much kind of a one person thing because my partners are operating other businesses right now, and I've got a great deal of support. But as far as being able to do the work, it's what I can manage right now. And it takes money to grow is really the bottom line. So we're now looking into fulfillment center and different things like that. We also just got enrolled with SAMS. So to have that will give us a little better opportunity, maybe to be able to get some support. But if it hadn't have been for the seed money from my partner and my brother, I don't know that we would have made it for 5 years. But that was a big deal. Yeah, we're in the black. I'm done.
can share some of the horrible things that happened to us. We started just selling out of the back of the pickup, Craigslist, and meeting people in the parking lot selling meat, and just kept putting money away and not really paying attention if it was going to be a sustainable business that we could grow. But as it became more popular and then we started producing food, we did things that I didn't want to do, which was go do catering and open a restaurant and all this kind of madness. But it did help support and grow our brand and our name and the recognition. Then we had some bad partnerships and trying to expand and grow, and lost a lot of money. And then as we started growing again, we've recovered like several times, almost closing, but just kept bootstrapping and pushing. Overextending our personal line of credits, my wife and I, and all that kind of stuff. And but as they say, sales forgives all sins. So we pushed more sales and pushed different ways of selling product. And I am navigating and doing all the things to get investment ready, and some of those things for the general population that wants to know is keeping the numbers super tight. Do everything on your bank with a bank card. Do it through QuickBooks or FreshBooks or any kind of thing where you can track every expense and get a good accountant if you can that knows all the ways and ins and outs of writing everything off and being able to track every penny so that you're able to scale. Because when you're ready to scale, you're going to need a lot of money. And I was fortunate enough that I could bring product to people and have it tasted. They agreed to do contracts, and we were able to take that and do borrow from the banks based on a contract or a loan to help us grow. But it's very difficult to do if you're not taking care of your personal finances and your business finances. It's pretty tough to get anything. So we're looking at all that and trying to make tools for people to use as well, just so that it's difficult, and you gotta have all those numbers straight all the time. As a new business owner, that was very difficult. We've been fortunate enough. Now we own a building. Now we are growing enough, and we got an offer from the USDA. Helps a lot, especially with the food FSA, part of the food security. And so now we have an offer for 1.2. We don't know if we want to take it because it is scary, but I think we can scale enough and that we're going to take the chance and it's low interest. But yeah, just be careful how you spend your money and make sure you track every penny on personal and business.
Thank you so much. Megan said that's sound advice, tracking every penny. It's amazing. Shahad, did you have any, Kahealani, I apologize. Did you have anything to add on or want to share?
Well, this business has been quite the learning experience because it was something that we were doing without really knowing why we were doing it, as far as for carrying on the legacy. And my dad was also employed by Hamakua Sugar Plantation, which is also another lifestyle. It was another lifestyle of simplicity. And when all of that was going to come to an end, and my dad decided that we were going to start our business, we were just going to start our business. So it was like going from one thing, jumping into the next. I'll be honest, we didn't start off with a business plan and expectations. And the expectations were so little because we were basing it on the Hamakua Sugar Plantation lifestyle, and then doing our farming that we were doing. And we were doing poi as a backyard operation. So if people needed poi, we did poi. We weren't certified to be in big stores or anything like that. So when we went into it with that simplicity and not having high expectations, other than we knew that we just had to make a living. We needed to bring in some income and stuff. So we didn't have like starting off working capital and all of these things that, or any type of a business plan. And I'm here to purely share our journey as far as for the legacy that it's been, and it's been joyful, but also the hard knocks that we've had along the way. And doing a business such as poi and kalo, I can't walk into a bank and they know what I'm talking about. So I would spend so much time just trying to explain what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it, and on and on. And a lot of times having a lot of doors slammed in our faces. So we've operated for most of the life of Mokuwai on if we had, we had, and if we never have, we never have, you know, and we would have to figure out a way to have. And, you know, it's been very stressful. And though we've been very blessed, and that's been the greatest thing, is we've been very blessed in these years. When we first started off, we went to our first market with a full white cooler. I don't know, what is that, 100 quart or whatever, full of poi. And we sold 13 bags. And we gave the rest away. And then we showed back up the next week, and we did the same thing. And every time it would grow by a few more bags and a few more bags. And then we built the relationship with our customers. And I feel that our success has been based on our customers, not based on the financial institutions that didn't understand what was the purpose of what we were trying to do. So I give my mahalo to our customers that believed in us from when no one even knew what it was that we were trying to do. And we've managed to, you know, take the knocks and highs and the lows and the no's and all of that. And just this past year, I was nominated to participate in a cohort. And I did it. And again, I didn't know, you know, our mentality. I wasn't raised to be in a business. You know, I was just raised to just do my kuleana. And I attended this cohort. And in a year, I walked in one person and I walked out someone else. Because in this cohort, I actually found people that believed in what it was that we were doing. And they helped us to find the resources and funding that we've been needing. For this year will make 28 years, you know, of being certified. And you know, the greatest feeling has been that connection, that pilina that we've built with everyone, and feeling like what we're doing has a purpose and makes a difference. And there's a reason why we're doing what we're doing. They didn't just look at us as, oh, we're trying to farm, or, oh, we're trying to feed people. They looked at us as a need, that we need to do this. We need to farm. We need to feed our people. And that has been a complete turnaround. So within the last year and a half, we went from 0 lo'i to 8 lo'i. And it's going to just continue to grow. And this month, we started to pool our kalo, our taro, and our seed is going into our lo'i, which up until now, we've had to get it from other farmers. So again, it's building the relationships. And I didn't base our success on financial institutions and how they looked at my business, because we knew what it was of how we were doing. And everything that you guys have said, I agree with 100%, because if I had known these things from the start, it would have made the ouchies a little bit better. But I'm grateful for the strength that I have because of what I was born into, that even when it was hard knocks, even when we went through the pandemic, whatever it might be, that we're still here today to do what we're doing. But there are people, what I learned this year is there are people out there that do believe in us for what we do. And that's where I plan to put my focus so that I can continue to build my strength, because they're there lifting us up instead of pulling us down. Sorry. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. We do have a question in the chat. We're gonna get through a couple of others before we get to that one. So to our panelists, how do you ensure your business remains financially resilient during uncertain times? You can think back on like inflation, during the pandemic when that happened, or any other type of speed bump that you've come across.
With us, I know we had a rough spring, summer last year. I think a lot of small business owners did in my area. We just gunned it and just did farmers markets as many times as we could. We hit every weekend. I would go to different spots all around the valley, even if it was 45 an hour out of spot, we would just, and I would only make a couple $100. I mean, you just do what you have to do. I mean, I would go and then emails, wholesale accounts, just try and get any and everywhere I could find anything, keep talking to previous wholesale accounts. Hey, you guys low, you guys need any more, let me know. I'm here ready for you guys, and another big part was doing marketing, especially with like Meta, Facebook, Instagram. We do a lot of social content. So, just kept trying to, make more content, cook more food, show our product more, show ads, do email marketing. I mean, last year was pretty rough. The summer was pretty bad. Just any and everything, any outlet you can have. That's what we did. We just kept going. I mean, social media was the big one that helped us get out of the rut. And then just the few accounts that I have wholesale, surprisingly hit me up like, yes, we need some. And just, kind of got the ball moving again. But that's essentially what you just have to do. Just kind of just every outlet you can think of, try and figure out, whatever you can to make things, back on track.
We hit some bumps quite a few times, and it was working with bigger corporations or billionaires and landowners, and so we learned the hard way. Back to what Kahealani said, is about relationships and engaging in community with your customers, the importance and the value of those customers, and figuring out the customer acquisition costs and what is it that you're losing for getting that customer and how long can you keep them. It sounds more technical, but it's really about telling the truth and the story, and sharing that, and people want to connect to you, even if you're doing it on social media, but person to person helps. And we personally try to commit at least 2 Saturdays a month to going and working in Lo'i or doing community service to engage with our farmers and doing things like that. That there's so much value beyond the work and being outside, but it's connecting with other people that want to learn and engage in both the history and the culture.
I agree with that. I agree with that for the reason that I think it's quality and consistency that people, like customers, look for. That every single time they come back to you, it's still that amazing experience that they had the first time, and that's why they came back to you again. So quality and consistency is like key to being successful. And then also, like, I love what you were talking about, Michael, because that's so true. Sometimes it takes doing even what seems like the little things, but those little things are actually the big things that help you to get to the next step. When we started our business, my mom and dad were in that simplicity mode and thought that we would never be in stores. We were just going to be out of the back of our truck. And I realized that sometimes in order to be successful, you have to be, that in order to be successful, we had to take those little risks uncomfortable times, you know, like, so now our poi is in Costco, but we still sell our poi out of the back of our truck. So we kept both worlds, you know, so it's just finding the balance on doing all the little things. I also do mail order, so I am able to ship our poi throughout the United States. And you know, all those things is taking those little steps, I feel like are what helped us to be to stay on track, because it's not always where it's flooded with orders or cash flow. So you got to do the things that you got to do. So good job, guys.
Well, and I think another part is to not be afraid to ask. I know everything that everybody else has talked about, it takes all the footwork and to never give up, but to not be afraid to ask who do you know that might have an interest, or who do you know that we could connect with? That was probably a tricky part for me, was just to not be too shy to ask.
We kind of touched on this earlier during this topic about first starting out. And the question is, what financial tools or education do you wish you had access to when first starting out in your food business?
Is that for me?
For everyone.
I think honestly, I wish I just went to business school. I mean, like I said, I was a cook and chef and all that for 15 years. I mean, I had no idea how to run a business. I mean, I had someone show me the website to go get an LLC, and got QuickBooks to help me kind of document everything. And that was pretty much it. And then just started learning everything as I went. And the one thing too is just being more resourceful of the programs and companies out there to help you. Like, we're part of IAC, Intertribal Agricultural Council, and they give you the seal that says certified made, produced by American Indians. You know, they take us all over the world to showcase our products. You know, what was it? MBE certified, Minority Business Enterprise. All these things I didn't know about. I mean, I think it was my third year when I finally was like finding all these things, and I was like, I wish I could have known all this stuff so I could be like, you know, certified, you know, more of a legit looking business with all these seals and programs and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I wish there was just like, you know, something, you know, business or whatever out there that can just show you all the things. And, you know, business school obviously can help, but you know, I just, like I said, I didn't know anything. And so, I mean, I just wish business school and all that stuff, I wish I would have done my earlier years, but, you know, still love where I'm at, but would have been a lot easier my earlier years.
And that's where I was extremely fortunate. My brother and partner had been a successful businessman for well over 20 years in more than one business. So he basically mentored and encouraged me through all of my ignorance, I have to say, because I had no idea what I was getting into. We just had an idea, and I dove in, and truly, if we had known what it was like to be in a food business as compared to a service business, we probably would have investigated much more before diving in the way that we did. We knew nothing, but what it's offered me is an opportunity at a time in my life when I just didn't have any idea what I could do over 60 years of age. It gave me a whole new outlook on life, actually, and to be surprised at how much we really can do if we just try, give it a chance, and don't give up. but I am too a part of the Intertribal Ag Council and American Indian Foods, and the exposure and the support that they've given us is priceless, really.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
I'm done.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. We do have a question from one of our participants, and to the panelists, they're asking, did any of you in the past few years consider GoFundMe or Kickstarter to get funds and support? Would it be something you would consider instead of going to traditional banks?
I would definitely try it before going to a bank. Um, I think I did try doing it once. I just never promoted it enough to where it led up. So, I mean, definitely, if you can get crowdfunding, anything like that before going to a bank and getting interest and all that crazy stuff, yeah, definitely do that before, if you have something that you truly believe in and you can do it, I would definitely try and do that before anything.
And early on, very early on, before we even had a product, we went ahead with an Indiegogo campaign, and it was kind of time consuming, but we surprisingly we got some funding and some support early on. I can only imagine what it would have been like if we had a product, but it was really very helpful, and the experience was good, and it helped for me to learn about being able to, about being active on social media as well. So I think there's great value in doing crowdfunding like that in many ways.
For
Yeah,
us, we utilized when I first took over the business, a local group here called Kohala Center. I was too intimidated to go to the bank. So I went to them, and they were the first ones that embraced us and made us to feel like what we were doing served a great purpose. And they helped us a lot with like getting our books in line, even like the switching over from Excel to QuickBooks. They were the ones that helped me to do all of that, because in my world and my mentality, simplicity meant that I only could do Excel, and my accountant was telling me at the time, how much better it would be to be in QuickBooks and all of this stuff. So I utilized agencies like that were more personal, because it kept us motivated and kept us feeling hopeful, versus going in to a bank and being told all the things that I didn't have in alignment for what they needed. I was able to get microloans through them at a very, very low interest rate. I did Kiva Zip, which was also an amazing program that I participated with, put our story out there, and we had people from all over the world contributing. And that made us feel good too, because it was like, wow, it's not only just here in Hawaii. We have people throughout the world that believe in our story and what we're doing, and helped us to get to our goals. We were able to get equipment through grant funding, so there were many little steps that we took before going out to a bank or something of that sort. And honestly, I haven't gotten financial funding through the banks. It's been through these type of agencies that are striving to build people like our businesses, to build our businesses up, and it took being humble to go and like Patricia said earlier, not being afraid to ask and saying, I don't have this, but how do I get to this point? And that's what helped us to climb the little steps here. Every year we grew a little bit more, and we grew a little bit more. But in my honesty, as I said earlier, I didn't go in, and I agree with Michael, like I didn't see myself as being a business owner. You know, I just wanted to make poi and I wanted to farm kalo, but to do what we do, you have to have a business mentality so that you can survive and move forward. So I started with the agencies that I felt were striving for the same things that we were. So we kind of started off in a GoFundMe in a sense way, but just utilize the different programs that these agencies were offering.
I agree. We never tried Kickstarter or GoFundMe because we have a nonprofit and we did one on that, and it was so much work, and you still have to know all the business and all the numbers and all the people and reach out and do advertising. So it was after the first thing we did like that, we're like, no way, no thanks. And then the other part, from earlier is that there are a lot of cohorts and accelerator programs in Hawaii. And if you can get in, usually it's a 9-week course. It's like a crash course on business, and there's a lot of help here by venture capital groups and also state-run groups, and they really help a lot. And they'll help you get through and reach out to do those kind of things if you're interested in that. And then the funding part again is there's other ways to fund through royalties and looking at all those options and using AI for crunching your numbers and your market research and all that to be strong and ready for funding. But when you use AI, you just got to be smart enough to look at 2 other sources before putting it on paper. And there's ways of lending through royalties, so that, you know, you can sell the product and give back, you know, like Shark Tank or whatever. But there's different ways of funding and looking at that. And there's also now investment through the public. So now the public can invest in your product and your company if you're choosing for that direction. But definitely get in a cohort before you try to scale for that kind of money, get in trouble.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. We're going to dive into our next category, and we're going to be discussing about strengthening food sovereignty and community impact. And our first question there to the panelists are, how does your work contribute to local food sovereignty and community well-being?
We work with a nonprofit here in Arizona. What they do is that they do monthly, it's called an Indigenous Box, and they go and help the 22 tribes around the state, you know, the really rural areas, you know, the reservations, and they hand out food, these boxes that have canned goods, flour mix, cornmeal. And so we provide the fried bread mix and blue cornmeal. So every few months they contact me and they ask for, you know, 2,500 or 5,000 bags of stuff. So that's our biggest contribution that we do, is that we help them, and then they go and disperse all these boxes to all the tribes here in the state.
We have been fortunate to have a connection with the Great Plains Food Bank, which is the state food bank in North Dakota. So 2 years in a row now, we've shared an order of 6,000 bars to Great Plains Food Bank, and they'll distribute the bars either within the backpack program for kids after schools, or they'll use them in their mobile food bank programs where into indigenous communities. It is invaluable, that connection to the food bank.
I think
What's
that the food banks are a great way to give back and to contribute. We've been doing the same thing. And last summer, we were actually able to participate in Kaukau for Keiki in Waianae, their summer program, food boxes for the kids. And we were able to package, we do poi pops, which is in a 4-ounce tube, um, individually portioned for a grab and go. So we participated with the program, and over a 4-week time frame, we were able to distribute 42,000 poi pops, which was equivalent to 10,500 pounds of poi. So, and it went to an amazing program. And we also participate in some other food banks here on Hawaiʻi Island. And I think that that is an amazing way to get our product out to the people and give them that sense of belonging and connection to Poi and Kalo.
So we provide food, and mostly we focus on cultural. So when there's projects and cleanups and recovering the fish pond and doing the takeout, and we've been honored to be asked to serve for beans and different things like that. And so we do those small things. I think the bigger vision for us is that investors don't like what I say, because my exit strategy is that everyone who helped us launch our business is going to be splitting the profits with us after we recovered our investment in time. So we're trying to grow a national brand, and that's our goal. And like I said, put more plants and teach these old skills and new skills to the youth in different places, and build a brand so it grows. Next year, we're going national with the military in the NEX stores, and then in the following year, we'll go internationally with our products. But our goal is to help ranchers and farmers stay on their land, and that's the most important thing. That's where all our food comes. That's where our spirit and everything comes from. And so our goal in next is in 4 or 5 years that we're splitting all the profits once other people have helped us grow and be here.
Thank you so much. To the panelists, what has been the response from your community as you've shared native foods with a wider audience? Ignacio, you mentioned you are going to be taking it international soon. Can you share about the community's perspective on your journey to commercialize and how you've maintained a respectful relationship with cultural values and traditions?
That's a good, hard question. Because I think I struggle with that internally too, right? We're killing animals, which I don't like to do unless it's for personal food. Traditionally, that's the way I was taught, and for sharing, and we're commercializing something, and we practice, other cultural. We do other cultural practices here on Oahu, and I always ask that of Uncle Bruce Kahealani and the Nuuhiwa line of what they teach, and so those things they're hard, deep questions I often battle with internally, because we're taking from the land and trying to commercialize it, but in a way we're trying to address more of the what do you say? The invasives, for lack of a better word, but now they're part of this ecosystem. And so, you're going to kill all the deer, and you know what you're doing, you're taking our food away. And it's a little bit of I don't know if it's, I don't know how to say it, but it's basically, we created this system and we're doing it to help the land. We're here to save resources, and it's not it's not like we're going out and killing all the animals, and we're not trying to do that. We're trying to steward it and help the farmers be able to stay on their land because there's too many deer. And by taking down deer population, we're also saving the reefs because the runoff of thousands of deer running on the land is affecting all the reef systems and our fishing and more traditional or endemic foods that are being affected by the runoff. And then there are some other people and folks are like, oh, but you're commercializing this. And I was like, yes, but someone's eventually is going to commercialize it. So how can we bring spirit to this action that we're doing? And so some of the things we try to impart is like, don't eat meat for 3 days before you hunt. Pray over the land, pray over the people, pray over the animal. Those are really important things how we justify doing it. And we only hire locals on every island. We don't go and bring in people, and we're always asked, oh, I can hunt, I can come hunt, and snipers and military are like, no, we're creating jobs for locals on that island. And that's what we're going to use. And we're going to use, if we can, more native people. That's our goals. And we stand by them. It's not always, I don't know if it's always the right choice, but it's our choice to do the right thing for the people that live on that land.
Thank you so much for sharing.
That was some of the early advice that I got was stay true to yourself and stay true to your heart, stay true to your mission and your goals. And even though our product is not traditional, and we've had to explain that we don't have a traditional pemmican to offer, we do offer education about how pemmican was used and made in the past and the value of it in the past and how we've been able to modernize it to be used today for, people don't need the fat content that they needed before, but they still do need a good, clean nutrition. And so our products now are being used in schools to educate the cultural changes. Kids today don't often realize that the dehydrator and the cooker of the past was the sun and the wind. They don't, they don't realize those things. So in schools, we're able to share how we've grown and changed still through this same traditional food. I don't know if that connects to the question that we were talking about, but we're pretty happy to be able to keep our culture alive through school programs like that.
Thank you so much. Have any of you seen shifts in health, economic opportunity, or cultural pride as a result of your work? I know, Ignacio, you shared about having jobs in Hawaii specifically for local people and creating that economic opportunity. Is there any others that you can think of, as well as like the other panelists?
Yeah, I mean, what we're going to try and do is, obviously keep it a very indigenous employee base, just because, you want people that understand the food and the culture, as well as the stories and stuff that are behind everything, culturally. And, eventually we would like to bring everything to the reservation. I mean, we're down here in the valley in Phoenix just because, there's not many resources out on the reservation. So my ideal plan is to make this big enough to where I can actually bring this out up to, like Window Rock, stuff, my reservation where my family's from, and just keep it, indigenous in the community, help other indigenous people and hopefully inspire them to start something, whether it be a food business or, whatever business they desire. But just to see, as an example, what I've done, and kind of be a mentor and just have them kind of just see what you can do. you know, kind of bring this back to the reservation, to the people.
I think it's important not to allow like distance and stuff to be a source of disconnect. You know, for people like for our Kanaka that have relocated to the other, you know, states and stuff, to feel like they have no connection with their aina, with their roots and where they come from. So, you know, um what Ignacio said earlier, like I support what it is that you're doing, because when we were going through the pandemic and there was such a disconnect, there was a disconnect with even just aloha, where, you know, we're so used to that you see someone and you go up and you hug them or, you know, honey them, and we couldn't do that anymore. I there was this sense of connection that I needed to do. And how do we normally do it in our culture is all by food, any type of food, but a gathering, you know, with food was always like a source of connection. So when we did it for and started doing mail order during the pandemic, and the response that we were getting of people not being able to come back home, but yet still having that connection to what they're familiar with, you know, like for us, poi and kalo is a strong connection to who we are and what we stand for. So being able to send that poi or that kalo to our people, I felt like we were still building that connection, and I think that that's important. And then you look further than that, like what you're doing, you know, allowing the farmers to be able to farm. What we do is we purchase kalo from our farmers here on Hawaiʻi Island, in Waipio, or I even purchase in Kauai, you know, and being able to work hand in hand with other farmers, even other poi processors, we're building the strength in what it is that we're doing. It's not only on the money side, but even in just the relationships. And I feel like we're supporting our other farmers or food producers to continue their dreams and the aspirations that they have and stuff. So I think that just in human nature, you're always going to have someone's input or someone's there will be negativity, but then if you're doing it for the right reason, like I think Michael said earlier, you know, when you know why it is that you're doing it, you can continue to do it and build on it. And I think that what we're doing, because it's food and it's nurturing, yeah, is what the backgrounds are. And I think that you cannot go wrong when you do that. Yeah. So and just be, it's just an honest thing. Like for us, it's like being honest and believing in the reason why we started, and then getting back up, having that perseverance to get back up every time when something doesn't go the way that we planned it to.
I think it's taking responsibility to me. So we're talking about health and community and maybe health issues, and I think all of these things are connected with well-being. And you know, Hawaii has so much abundance, and I don't understand how 80,000 kids go hungry here. And so we're always looking, what can we do to improve that? The 30% of our people can't afford to eat here is a major problem. So when we look at why do we have goals to grow, what are we doing? We also, like what Kahealani said, we work with other farmers, and we have a storefront too. And we only sell local. We choose that because we think that's the way to do things right. And the well-being, it can be mental and economic, and they're not completely disconnected. It's how can we feed our people and not be dependent from outside, even though we like other food from other places and we appreciate them. It's about being able to take care of our people where we're at, wherever we go, there we are, right? But I'm here now, so my job is to see what I can do to improve the well-being of our community and have less people going hungry. There's no reason for it with all this abundance.
Thank you so much for sharing. As we're nearing the end of our panel discussion, we're going to open up the floor for audience questions and engagement. We do have a couple that came in. Those that are still on as our participants, please feel free to send us a question through the Q&A or chat, and we'll make sure to have time to answer that. Today, we do have a question specifically for Kahealani from our audience. What kind of equipment do you use to make your poi pops?
Well, all of the equipment that I have in my poi kitchen was actually customized by my dad. This is where I give thanks to the Hamakua sugar plantation, because that's where he got his ability to fabricate all the things that we have in there. And so even for my poi pop, it's my standard bagger that he made. And then he just made my attachments so that I'm able to get the poi into my 4-ounce tube. However, never say never, because everyone would have probably told me you'll never get that poi in that tube. And when I started off, it was with a toothbrush holder, and I put the tubes in there, and I had a turkey baster with a poi bag, and I hand squeezed it in to get the point across that I could get the poi into the tube. And then from there, my dad helped me to customize my equipment so that I'm able to do it. But I don't have a like factory designed equipment. It's everything that we fabricated in our poi kitchen. Hope that answers.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I would love to see that one day. We do have a question now for all of the panelists. So do the food banks pay market price when they buy your products?
Well, I can answer that like right away. Our first sale to the food bank was through a grant. It was through a USDA grant. And even though I tried to give a better price because it was going to be such quantity, they said, no, give us your actual wholesale price because we are wanting to support your business. So the first time that we sold to the food bank, it really made a difference. And of course, we had our regular wholesale price, which was much lower than anything retail, but it made all the difference to have that. Now, this last time, we gave, I think, a little better price, maybe eased up on the shipping or something, but they do pay. We have been able to charge and get a good price for our products. I'd love it if we could give them, and hopefully down the line we'll be able to give more of our products away. But right now, we do have to charge a wholesale price.
We did food bank during the fire. We helped feed the first responders and some people in need. So we work with the Maui Food Bank, and yeah, the grant money and that kind of stuff comes from the Fed, so it was available in there. And it feels awkward to do it because you just want to help, right? We want to do whatever we can. That's our nature. So we were able to. I was like, well, I'll do a pallet of food at the wholesale cost or less, and then we'll give away a pallet. Even now, I'm reaching out to Hui Hānai Comprehensive to feed the elders. We're like donating food. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the businesses, yeah, there is money, and you can't turn it away if you can get it. But like we give away a lot on our side, and we always get blessings. double from other places. So it's, I don't know, I think the world knows what you're doing. So if you can give it, you give it. We've always been taken care of in that way.
Thank you so much for sharing. We do have one last question from our participants. How can Indigenous food sovereignty be supported and protected within broader food systems, and what role can non-Native allies play in that effort?
I think just offering more programs and support for native produced products, that would definitely help. Like even trying to get stuff into groceries, we did something with the USDA up in Vancouver. They got us up into grocery stores to kind of test and see if it did well, which our stuff did pretty well on. But after that whole program, I haven't heard anything back from them. I think if they just really pushed and really brought to light Indigenous products and stuff, and more companies willing to work with them and kind of see that people do want this kind of food, they want this kind of product in their stores, and people are definitely willing to buy it. And I think those companies that are willing to help, I think there needs to be a lot more of them. And I think it'd help a lot of producers like us and other people, and there's definitely a market for it. And I think we're getting there. I think more and more items are getting exposed and out there. So yeah, I just think just more support from other companies, non-native companies, just bigger ones that can do it would definitely help.
We had to go out of state in order to be able to have our products produced. I think that the regulations that might be, our food is so highly regulated. Good nutrition is so much more costly than junk. And so I think for the big picture, it would be helpful if there was as much value and credit given to good foods as there was to cheap foods.
This is a wild idea, but I've always pushed this to, so because we took over the whole Kokua market co-op, and we learned a lot about what was going on and how cooperatives work, and listening to the farmers that we purchased from, and we've continued their work under a different brand and name. It's Hapa Market, and now we've built a online platform with apps where people can buy direct from the farmer to get rid of the distributors and get rid of the retail prices, which are typically adding 40–60% margins. We prefer that money goes into the producers' pockets, and it's called Ohi Ohi, Harvest and Gather. And we want farmers to use that. We help with all the passive plans and all the other stuff. And I do think there's potential when you can do it direct to consumer in mass. You can skip some of those. And I actually sat down with the USDA and like wild bison and moose and elk and these other native foods, or wild rice. These things can be brought to market on a national level because they're healthier. There is a want. And then for me, I look at it and I go, in order for me, we sell our product here, like our meats, 20% lower than any other store in the island. How I can do that is I sell it for more in the mainland to restaurants and fancier places. And my goal is always sell 50% higher elsewhere because there's a perceived value for a Hawaiian product, which I think is there for native reservation foods that are clean and labeled in those ways. And then so that we can keep it affordable for the locals in Hawaii or on the res. To me, I think it's looking at economics and saying, where can I get more so that everybody else around me, where I'm at, can eat good food at an affordable price.
Good point.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right, final question. How have, for the panelists, how have you or your communities been impacted by land ownership or land back efforts?
I cannot speak for everyone, but for the struggles that we have seen in our valley, it was due to land ownership and lease contracts. And so the farmers were only on a year to year lease, and our crop is a year. So a lot of the crops were, a lot of the farms were declining because, you know, people didn't have that thing to get out there, and why do it if next year I might not be able to even harvest, or, you know, living in that. And last year we were able to negotiate a 15-year lease contract, and so that has changed everything for us. So I think like those kind of things do play a big impact on what we do, because if you don't have the security as a farmer to be able to harvest your crop, or, you know, prosper from it, then there'll be a decline. So I think that those things are definitely a huge impact.
Yeah, I see the same thing with the ranchers and their leases and billionaires coming in from outside trying to take over and doing all kinds of things like that. And that's why we're trying to build support systems to keep those numbers tight, where the goal is to find that financing for them to own their own land and control our own food systems without outside influences. And how do we get more people back on their land, the land that some of it is lineage land that's been their family forever, but it's lost either weird shady deals or because of lack of ability to pay the bills on time. And so we're super aware of that as a company, and see how we can support ranchers or farmers in acquiring leases and acquiring more for cheaper by offering them contracts to make products that we want to manufacture. And I'm fortunate enough to create products for other companies, and I work with different manufacturing companies where I say, well, let's use local and let's make a deal and sign a deal to have 100,000 pounds of tomatoes. I'll bring in the tomato seeds to you so I can make the spaghetti sauce. So I think thinking outside the box to help people acquire land, that's why I'm in business. I know the well-being of my community is dependent on commerce and food, and how can we make everyone successful in this business. I think that's my responsibility that I've taken on personally, and I want more people on their own land, taking care of food and feeding themselves first, feeding everybody else what they can after.
Thank you so much to our attendees, and especially our panelists, for your time, your valuable time, and being a part of this amazing discussion. Is very fascinating and very important, and I hope that it inspired everyone. I know it inspired me a lot, so thank you. And I know we're all meeting across different time zones, and I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. The recording will be available. We're going to share it with everyone. We'll also have it available on our YouTube channel. And we'll make sure to get that to our attendees as well. So thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you
Thank you.
so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Aloha.
Aloha.